Welcome in. This is the early Wedge, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Tour Championship. A lot of interesting things to get underway, a lot of strategy to discuss, and helping me do just that, Sia Nejad is here. Hello, Sia.
What's going on? I feel like I'm already waiting for the pro course so I can get like a full field and a cut and 6K pricing with guys nobody's ever heard of. But this will be fun. I think there's a lot, and I think Mike will get to this as the show goes, but certainly me and you will too, Rick. The game theory side of this, I mean, to me, you just really have to lean into it with a tournament 30 deep.
Yeah, we'll cover that indeed. Mike McClure is here. Mike, hey, buddy.
How's it going, fellas? Always excited to get here. Undecided how many lineups I'm playing this week. I usually have been playing 3 lineups. To me, it may be a week to play more. I may play 20. I may play 100. Just kind of depending on where I think some of the ownership falls. I think there's very interesting decisions to be made, and you obviously you have to nail the basically the top 5. So it's going to be a fun tournament.
Yeah, you're going to be rostering 20% of the entire field in every single one of your lineups. Sia, you get to choose. Would you like to talk about the course first, or would you like to talk about the field first?
Let's talk about the field first.
That is a 30-man field, and for the first time in a handful of years, there are no starting strokes. So when we used to have this discussion in the past, how many guys could actually win this, and the finishing position points are being allocated already, yada, yada, yada. You don't have to worry about that anymore, Sia, because everybody is starting at even par. So in theory, every single golfer with I shouldn't say the same chance. That's not true, but every single golfer is going to start at even par.
Rick, this reminds me though of, years past where we did have the staggered scoring. We'd have a guy at -10 and what was it? -9 and then -8, or -10, -8. And then it would go down.
Yeah.
And I would be the guy that would like really try to like work the -4 guy and be like, I think this guy has a chance to win. And you would always break it down. So like from a statistical standpoint, be like, no, Sia, like that's not going to happen. It never happens. So just please don't bet that guy. And I'd be like, no, I'm betting him. But this does make it a little bit more interesting, both from an outright and DFS standpoint. We don't have to worry about Scottie being like 16 flat. I think there is a question of whether he's expensive enough. We'll let maybe Mike get to that one. But yeah, it's a wide open field outside of the fact that Scottie wins every tournament. But from a DFS standpoint, there is the perception that Scottie's going to win. And there's a lot of guys that I think are going to be popular names that people like to play, which we'll get to. And I think kind of swaying from some of those guys, if not all of them, is a decent strategy, at least with a couple of lineups this week.
Yeah, there used to be this almost NASCAR-esque strategy where you'd have like your starting position and then your finishing position relative to that starting position. We don't have to worry about that anymore, Mike, but the bigger, I guess, problem or the bigger discussion here is going to be those ownership percentages, right? I mean, they're going to be massively inflated, as we've seen, just because you are rostering so much of the field in every single lineup. You're going to see concentration around specific golfers, and presumably because we have no starting strokes, we also don't have a 5K range. So we do go down to just that standard $6,000 min price with these 30 golfers. What were your first couple of takeaways from seeing this field and the pricing?
You could still mostly build awesome lineups. And I don't know if that's a product of the pricing or the product of 30 of the best golfers in the world teeing it up. And you feel like, I've got good golfers in my lineup, kind of no matter how it shakes up. As far as, is Scottie too expensive? No, it's not hard to play Scottie. I think the pricing is pretty okay so far. I think that it's correct in the sense that Scottie, Rory, Ludwig are very clearly 1, 2, and 3, in my opinion. I actually have Ludwig second over Rory, just slightly, but yeah, it's not terribly difficult. I also, just pointing out scoring rules, right? You're always hunting birdies in DFS golf. Like you certainly prefer the birdie bogey over 2 pars any day of the week, which I think a lot of us understand that at this point. But if you're new and don't play a lot, it's important to keep that in mind. And why it's important to keep that in mind when you look at scoring here, talking tournament finishing position, the last place golfer earns 3 points. 30th position earns 3 points. To get up to 10th, all the way in the top 10, that's just 7 points. It's 4 points difference. It's if we drop down to 11th, right, you finish 11th versus 30th, that's one birdie across the entire tournament is all the differences there. So ignore finishing position, in my opinion, maximize birdies at all costs. And after your top 2 or 3, whoever it may be, your top 2 or 3 may be different than mine. You jam those guys in lineups, and sounds crazy to say, but the rest of your lineup just simply probably doesn't matter.
Okay. I rarely make lineup. I had a couple minutes earlier and I was like, let me just start clicking some names and see. And I got to the point where I had 2 spots left and I was like, I don't think this matters. I just don't think I'm just I'm said so funny you said that. So yeah, those birdies might be a little bit more difficult to come by. So there's a lot of things going on here. So there was the restoration to East Lake prior to last year's edition, which saw Andrew Green kind of take this back to the original roots of East Lake, and green complexes were touched. They actually moved the lake itself, where it gets its name from. And there's just a lot of changes. And then this year, because of no starting strokes, they are trying to make this difficult. That's the compromise to Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. You don't get to start at 10 and 8 under par, but we'll make it really hard, which should benefit you. And we're going to see some new pin locations. We are going to see the rough play be at least an inch longer than we normally see. The only thing that the tour cannot control is, of course, Mother Nature, who might have her say on this golf tournament. So how do you see East Lake in 2025 relative to what you might have seen over the last decade or so?
First of all, we have Paul L in the chat who says, is it Westlake now? And I got to chuckle out of that.
That's great. They legit moved the lake. I didn't know you could do that. It was incredible.
Good stuff from the chat as usual. But so I think it's a tee to green test. I think you're right. It probably will be a bit more penal to be in the rough, as Josh puts up the scorecard here. But yeah, you talked about it, and I know we were talking about it with Josh pre-show about how we might get a more receptive course because of the rain kind of throughout this tournament. So something we'll have to keep an eye on. But for me, I think we have a pretty good idea of like how these top 30 are playing coming in. I do think off the tee is going to be really important. I think some people might err to the side of accuracy because they're hearing that the rough is going to be a little bit more penal. I'm not so sure I'm going to do that, but I certainly am looking at off the tee distance, and I certainly will take a peek at accuracy well. But I'm looking for the full tee to green test, guys who can score, like Mike said. So we're looking at the birdie or better stats and opportunities gained and things of that nature. Scoring, tee to green, recent form. I mean, you've got all out of the 30, there's probably 15 to 20 you can make an extremely good argument that will put up a pretty great number in DFS. So it's just a matter of picking the right ones.
We're looking at the scorecard right now, back down to a par 70 this year, just a little bit longer, 7,440 yards. Mike, you talked about birdie makers and the relationship between fantasy points and finishing position not being as strong for this week. Are there any other metrics that you are considering strongly for East Lake?
Yeah, I think that, when you get to more difficult tests, just bogey avoidance. Bogeys can definitely be costly here. I'm looking at greens in regulation. Gained is a metric. Tee to green, total strokes gained, just recent form. Those are going to be really where I'm looking. Again, it's 30 players, so I think it's far less important there and far more important to simply find your 2 or 3 guys. I know all 30 can in theory go win, but I do expect there to be a top tier. And I think all of us or everyone will have, 2 or 3 names that I think can really go win for sure and have true win equity. I think you jam those guys in lineups, and I'm far less concerned with, how someone's going to rate in terms of strokes gained off the tee when we're talking about a field of 30 players, right? So bogey avoidance, greens and regulation, off the tee play, but really current form more than anything.
That weather forecast does indeed show, chances of rain every day, but I think it might be a lot like what we saw in Memphis, what we saw in Maryland, that just summertime, Atlanta, chances of thunderstorm. We'll see how much it impacts the golf course over 4 days, and if the tour can keep East Lake as fiery as they would like. We're going to start naming names. With only 30 guys in the field, who knows? We might name them all, but we'll do that after a quick word from our partners.
go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
And we're back. Here's the cheat sheet on my website, rickrungood.com. As mentioned, 30 golfers in the field, 3 of them over $10,000. Scottie Scheffler leads the way, $13,900. Rory McIlroy, 11-3. Ludwig Oberg, $10,100. Sia, your first impressions on the top of the board.
Scottie's not expensive enough. That's impression number one. Ludwig is probably my second favorite, along with Mike. I know Mike had just said that. I like his price. And by the way, if anybody wants to flirt with the old Ludwig Scottie lineup, it leaves you with 6,500. And by the way, the lineup you make, because it is the top 30 here, it doesn't look that bad. I even fit with that lineup a 7,200 guy because I was just peeling from the bottom of the board. I will make an argument against Scottie, though, and this is what I did in Showdown. This week, I actually had my main lineups for the 4 days weren't very good. My Showdown lineups were great. It was probably the best Showdown weekend I've had this entire year. So I will say this. In Showdown, I think it's a really good idea to kind of like buck the trends, maybe even fade Scottie, maybe round 2 or 3 or wherever you choose. I'm willing to fade Scottie, though, in the 4-day event. I just think this is a really opportune time to just hope and pray that Scottie doesn't do the Scottie thing. And if I'm going to like insert game theory here, again, I'm crossing my fingers, but I'm going to start my lineup below him.
Hope and pray, Mike. Is that a strategy that you will be subscribing to this week when it comes to Scottie Scheffler?
I'm going to hope and pray that if I decide to play 100 lineups, that I have Scottie in enough of them. I think that this is Scottie Scheffler's tournament to win or to lose, however you'd like to say it. Like we can look at Scottie's log here. It's just incredible. Like, keep scrolling. You're gonna have to scroll for a couple minutes to find a spot where he finished double digits, T25 back at the Waste Management, right?
Yeah,
so like
and T20 at the Players, but it is just like, I mean, this is video game stuff.
Yeah,
it is truly unbelievable. He's the best player in the world by a wide margin. I like Scottie. I'll play him. For me, as Sia mentioned, Ludwig is second.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That might surprise some people. So how does Ludwig get himself above Rory McIlroy, who has done nothing but roll out of bed and dominated East Lake? Yeah, and that's a great point. Some of it is in factoring in price, but I do like what I've seen from Ludwig, honestly. He's been a high variance player, but we've all seen the upside that he's had. And the results, in my opinion, have been fantastic after the Travelers. He took some time off, spent some time back in Sweden, played well at the Scottish Open, okay at the Open. There's a scenario there at the Open, which you can say this about a lot of players, but that 23rd finish, like, he could have easily turned that into a top 5. He was right there. And then FedEx and BMW, it's just a total gain across every category once again. Now the fact that with the format being changed and can actually go win this, I think he is in a great spot to potentially capitalize on it. And like I said, I think it's a very clear Scottie, Rory, Ludwig, 1, 2, 3, whatever order you want them in. Obviously, no one's going to put anyone above Scottie, but I think that he's clearly third at worst here in this field. So, I mean, it's the Tour Championship. There's 30 players left. They've earned their way here, and the 3 most expensive guys here are obviously very good golfers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all right. So let's try to do this in a way that does kind of illustrate the sentiment. So let's assume you're playing 100 lineups. Okay. Mm-hmm. How are you distributing? Only one guy, one guy has to be in each one of these lineups, or maybe not, but how are you distributing your exposure to Scottie, Rory, Ludwig across those 100 lineups?
So if I'm making 100, it's certainly not going to be like, again, because I'm not. And so that's why I'm more willing to fade Scottie in the handful of lineups I make this week. But if I'm making 100, I am making some Scottie lineups. I kind of, because I think pricing's relatively soft. I kind of want to box out Roy McIlroy. I would probably be 60% Scottie, and I just want to take a stand. Like, listen, there's 30 players. I want to take a stand here on some players. Whether I think Roy might be great, just like he usually is at Eastlake. But I can't just be like, oh, I like Roy this much and I like Scottie this much, and they're all just kind of filtering in. I'm going to take a stand. I'll probably fade one of these three guys. It'll probably be Roy McIlroy. And so for me, if I was making 100 lineups, I would probably have 30 with Scottie, 30 with Ludwig, and the rest without any of the three.
I do like the idea of taking a stand here, Mike. And there's a comment here from C who says, how do you get different in a 30-player field without leaving salary on the table? I mean, is it possible? How do we do it? Are we just taking a bunch of stands? What's the pathway to being different at the Tour Championship?
Leaving salary is certainly going to be one of your better bets in terms of doing that. Other than that, it's still just different combinations of players that you think the sentiment is frankly low on, right? So if we all, for instance, when we get down to talk about guys like Collin Morikawa and some of these other players, that the sentiment has just simply been negative on, for quite some time. I think that it's probably mixing a guy like that in intentionally, and you can even do it in a spot where you want to leave some salary. So my example of that would be, who would be a good example? Say you like Tommy Fleetwood at like 9,900 and you like the rest of your lineup you built with him. If you're playing 100 lineups, one of those lineups, just simply play an $8,300 Collin Morikawa over the $9,900 Tommy Fleetwood and move on, and don't try to spend your salary. Just making little one-off swaps. Again, we're talking, if you're trying to play 100, you build a bunch of lineups you like, feel free to get guys in there where the sentiment is low. But yeah, it's nearly impossible. As you mentioned, 20% of the field is in your lineup. So it's going to be really hard to get extremely, extremely different without doing extreme things like leaving thousands of dollars of salary.
There are some names though that I think everybody's going to have some ownership. We'll find out on the live chat show on Wednesday, but there are some names that people just aren't going to want to click. And I think if you play these names, whether it's in a big tournament or a small tournament, like a Patrick Cantlay, we'll get to these guys, Justin Thomas, maybe Colin, we'll see how much ownership he gets. Sepp Straka, people are going to be afraid. Like, I'm not 100% sure he's playing, but even if he is, I think people are kind of wondering what's going on with Sepp Straka. He hasn't done much lately. So there are Bobby Mack, like, are people going to go, he flashed last week and maybe people are like, well, that was his chance to win one of the playoff events. And so maybe people aren't going to be on him. I think there's plenty of guys that aren't going to be super popular, especially if you pair some of those guys in the same lineup. You're probably going to be different than a lot of the field, especially if you're also leaving money on the table. When you leave money on the table this week, I think leaving like 300-400 this week isn't really leaving money on the table in the traditional way, because that's how a lot of lineups are going to look anyway, because there's only 30 players. There's only so much pricing to go around. But if you're leaving like 1,100 on the table or 900 or 1,400, that's a different story. And I think you can get away with doing that considering this field.
I'm going to leave like 9,000 on the table this
now
week.
We're talking.
Here's a couple of those names that Sia and Mike mentioned in the 9K range. Only 4 golfers: Tommy Fleetwood, 9,900, Russell Henley, 96, Victor Hovland, 94, and Justin Thomas, $9,100. Okay, Mike, we're now away from the big 3. This is the next 4. What are we thinking here?
This one is tough because, like, Tommy's price, Tommy's been a machine in terms of just being there and being relevant. The price point, I think, is kind of prohibitive when it's so close to Ludwig, who I think has more upside. So I'm going to be playing a lot more Ludwig. I'm probably not getting to this range. If I did, it's Victor number 1 for me. Probably Victor, Tommy, Russ, JT, which I know I've been a big JT guy over really forever, but I'm down on JT at the price point, and I just don't think he quite has it in this field right now. So JT would be last, Victor would be first. Don't think I'm getting a ton in this range unless I'm playing 2 of these guys together in this range and skipping everyone above them.
JT's been okay. It's not horrible. Nothing great. Hovland starting to put things together. Tommy's been fantastic. And then Russell Henley, who's just, probably one of the more consistent golfers that we have on the PGA Tour, getting back to Eastlake. again. Sia, what I tend to agree with Mike that I spent a lot of energy on the 10K range trying to figure out who I could pair with Scottie, and does Ludwig rival Rory? That it did not leave me with a lot of options and creativity in this 9K range. How did you start to assess this?
So I'm thinking primarily, especially this week, of popularity. I do think Victor Hovland's going to be a very comfortable click for people, because not because he's a comfortable type player, but because of the upside that he offers. And so I think that's a guy I'm likely going to avoid, because I think when you look at this 9K range, it's probably going to go Victor, Henley, and then Fleetwood and JT. And I do think this is a really good time to consider playing Fleetwood in a Scottie lineup, because a lot of people, if they're going to play Fleetwood, like Mike said, they're probably just going to go up to Ludwig Oberg. And so what I mean by that is there's not going to be a lot of Ludwig Fleetwood lineups. I think that's an interesting way to play it. And there's certainly not going to be a lot of Scottie Fleetwood lineups, again, compared to the rest of the field. I think it's an interesting way to implement Tommy Fleetwood specifically because he's so close to Ludwig. But I agree, I'm not into this range. I think, though, game theory-wise, Justin Thomas would be the play.
I don't have it up in front of me, Sia. I assume that you might. What is Scottie and Fleetwood leave you with?
It's going to leave you, I believe, with 6,400, but let me double check that.
So, and then we were talking earlier about Scottie and Ludwig leaving you with, what was that number?
6,550 is the number with Fleetwood.
Yeah.
And the number with Ludwig is going to be a flat 6,500.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
So why, in other words, Rick, to your point, because I know this is why you're asking, of course, people are just going to play Ludwig with Scottie, right? If you're thinking upside and all of those things, which is why you're not going to see as many, especially in some of these smaller contests where you really want to build an edge, or the bigger ones. Fleet and Scottie is not going to be the most popular pairing.
Yeah. And I'm definitely ready to get freaky. There's been a lot of, and Mike, I don't know how much I know you and I, we love the numbers, we love the models, but the last couple of weeks, there has been a lot of layers and a lot of things to play for. Guys trying to advance to the next round, guys trying to secure spots in signature events, guys trying to secure their spot on Ryder Cup teams. For the most part, like, all of that's over. There's a couple of guys who still have to play for, maybe a little bit of Ryder Cup exposure for a captain selection. But I mean, I think we're going to get guys just straight freewheeling this thing. And I think we're going to get I think we're going to get guys that are tired at the end of the year and play really bad. And I think we're going to get guys that might not have had their best stuff and just find it and go nuts this week.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case for a lot of players here. Particularly, when you look at some of the payouts, right? So what, last 30th place is 355 grand.
Right.
But not that 100 grand is not a lot of money to these guys. I mean, it is to some, it is to not to others, but like the difference in finishing 17th or 30th is nothing, right? To a lot of these players that are in this position, right? So I think that, it's like a question I see on social media. Would I rather do this for $10 million or this for that? Like I'm playing for $10 million, or I'll comfortably take my 355K here, right? If it goes poorly. And I think that's the attitude for probably, I don't know, 19 to 22 of the players in the field this week.
Yeah. If it doesn't work, you get 300 grand. If it does work, you get 10 million. That's pretty good. You're playing golf either way. Still lots of big names, still lots of decisions to be made. We're going to continue this conversation after a quick word from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
And we're back. Here is that 8K range, excuse me. And again, it's tiny. Only 4 of them. Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns, Colin Morikawa, J.J. Spawn. Mike, I think I gave Sia first crack in each of the first 2 tiers, so I'm going to give you first crack here. We've got guys going in different directions, so there are some decisions in the 8K range.
Very much different directions. I want to be able to play Colin Morikawa. I mean, if I get to 100 lineups, I'm going to be playing him. I mean,
why?
man.
Why do we want to play him? And I agree with you, but why?
Because no one's going to. And he's just like, for the longest time, he was priced very similar to Tommy Fleetwood, right? They were next to each other all the time. In this kind of format and this kind of field, you're getting a significant discount, $1,600 discount for, in my opinion, the same upside. The downside is bad, but again, the downside, you finish 30th here and you get 3 finishing position points. You finish 14th, you get 5, right? So it's like less than a birdie. It's a birdie difference there. We know what Colin's been able to do, like on approach play. He's still hit greens at a crazy rate over the last 24 rounds in this field. He's second in greens and regulation in this field. Like, yeah, the putter's been a disaster. That part of it's been a disaster. But what we just mentioned, like, it's the end of the season. There's $10 million upside. You know the downside. The downside is your $355K, and you get a week off. I think it's the perfect time to play Colin when no one wants to.
I'm dying to see what the ownership projections are going to be in the next 24 hours or so. Okay, see ya. Cantlay, Burns, Morikawa, and JJ Spawn. What tickles your fancy?
All of it. I love all of it. I'm not a Colin guy. I'm not a Cantlay guy. I certainly am a Burns and JJ Spawn guy. But let me tell you from a DFS standpoint who I love the most, because I think sentiment will be, there you go. Oh, you had it.
Ooh, was it Patrick?
It was Patrick Cantlay.
Should have went with my first gut.
No, I mean, it's 100% Patrick Cantlay. I don't think a lot of people are going to get, again, there's no dead zone, quote unquote. But I think there's people right above Patrick Cantlay, right below Patrick Cantlay that people are going to want to go with. What I love about this profile here on RRG is his ability to spike. Like, look what he's been doing with the approach play. Yeah, it's gone the other direction, but what do we care about the other direction in DFS? Give me the spike approach play. Give me the spike putting, which we've seen glimpses of as well. And then he's been okay off the tee. I think this is like such a funny setup too for Cantlay to succeed and maybe like win this tournament when everybody's Patrick Cantlay sucks. But I don't need that. That's the whole point. I just want some sort of spike Patrick Cantlay at 8,700. Let me just share a quick lineup for you. Ludwig. I'm starting my lineup with Ludwig, which I'm fading Scottie. Big objection there, but starting with Ludwig, I think I've got a few people on my side.
Okay.
Then I go Sam Burns, Patrick Cantlay, Tommy Fleetwood. So now I've paired Ludwig with Tommy Fleetwood, which pretty much nobody's going to be doing, relatively speaking. I've got 2 8K guys. Swap out Burns for JJ if you want. Doesn't matter to me. And I've got Cantlay in there, relatively unpopular. That leaves me with 6,400. I throw in Bridgman at 6,100. I've got 6,700 left for a handful of golfers. Like, these are the types of lineups I'm very intrigued by. Again, it's a hope and pray that Scottie Scheffler doesn't actually win the tournament. But if somehow he doesn't win, these are live.
That would leave you with like 7 golfers to choose from, which is like 25% of the field, which is
that's right.
Not crazy. I had Patrick Cantlay winning this would just be vintage Patrick Cantlay.
Yes.
Just like,
it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Here I am.
I'm the guy. I'm the FedEx Cup champion. I'm going to win this golf tournament. The 7K range is interesting for a lot of what Mike mentioned. So here we've got a handful more names: Cam Young, Ben Griffin, Sepp Straka, Hideki Matsuyama's in the middle. And then the bottom of this range is Robert McIntyre, Keegan Bradley, Maverick McNeely, Corey Connors, and Harry Hall. So, Mike, I find this fascinating because what you said, the difference between 14th place in finishing position points and 30th is nothing. These guys that can make a ton of birdies, Cam Young, Hideki Matsuyama, Ben Griffin, just to name a few.
Yep.
I don't have the final numbers in front of me. These dudes were prolific birdie makers last week. Now, they made their share of big numbers. Cam Young hit 5 shots that resulted in penalties, and still finished, I don't know, 11th or whatever he was in that tournament. So I see firepower in this range. What do you see?
That's exactly what I see. And those are the 2 names. It's Cam Young and Hideki Matsuyama to start for me here. And then in the 7s there, Matt McNeely. I'm playing all 3 of those guys quite a bit. But in terms of like my overall ownership or my overall exposure when I build thousands of lineups, it goes Scottie, Cam Young, Colin Morikawa, Hideki Matsuyama, Ludwig, and Mav McNeely. So I love Cam Young here. The upside is just about birdie making, right? So I don't care if Cam Young finishes, he has the upside to go win it, sure. But if he ends up falling to T6, 16, 17, somewhere in there, I don't care, because I think he's going to have enough birdies along the way. Like, he's certainly going to make some bogeys, but I think he's going to have enough birdies to where he could finish 17th and score the same amount of fantasy points as a few of the 10th place finishers or better. Yeah. And that's what's very much in range this week.
I want to pull up Maverick McNeely's profile here, Mike, and let you speak on that for just 1 second, because I don't know if people realize just how good he's been this year. And, no longer is he just that putting specialist who can only get it done with the flat stick. He is a much better tee to green player than, honestly, a lot of his peers.
Really, he has been. When you look at, obviously we know he played well last week, and I am kind of riding some of that current form coming in. But yeah, he's been there. When you talk about the tee to green play, he's positive, over the last 20 tournaments there, essentially. Well, you have to go back to the real bad tee to green plays all the way back in March, back-to-back weeks, Arnold Palmer and the Players. Like, since that, I think he's been pretty good. So it's mostly just kind of riding the hot hand more than anything. And then the one thing he does exceptionally well is that short game, which you got to have it doesn't hurt to have a great short game when we're talking about needing birdies.
If you're watching on YouTube, I'm showing the scorecards from Hideki Matsuyama last week. Round 1 birdie, 17 pars. Round 2, 6 birdies, no bogeys, 12 pars. Round 3, more lead out of his pencil than you could possibly imagine. He started double bogey, birdie, bogey. He would go on to put a lot more shapes on the card. And then look what he does on Sunday. He has a stretch where he makes 5 birdies in 6 holes, and then he gives it back, and then some 31, 42 to shoot a 73. Listen, it's not all good, but it's a lot of firepower, Sia. So I am just like in on Hideki. What do you see in this 7K range?
I see a matchup win for me on Saturday. I'm 21-5-1 over the last 5 weeks on the matchups I give out on the early edge. And I will tell you this, on Saturday, I gave one out on Twitter, and it was Ludwig over Hideki, and he just actually fought back. So he exploded on those first 3 holes, and then he kind of made it close and then kind of went away again. So I was really happy to get bad Decky on Saturday as opposed to good Decky most of the other days. With that said, I'm not playing Decky. Listen, I do understand, because I think it was last Wednesday, Rick, I kind of called you out for the Decky take during our live chat, and I kind of didn't get it, but I do get it now. And I do get, like, we're going after scoring and Decky can do those things. I think there's just been too many blow up spots. I'm just going to pass over him. Cameron Young's going to be really popular for good reason. He's already one of my outrights in the without market. I gave that on the early edge this morning at 20-1. If he gets really popular, I'm happy to avoid him or Ben Griffin. This range altogether has some really good guys that I think deserve to be played, which is why I might end up building lineups that actually avoid this range altogether and just go down, dip into the 6K range and play a lot of 9K, some 10K, and some 8K stuff. But I like Cameron Young the most. I like Ben Griffin. Mav makes sense. I don't know that I'm playing any of them other than Cam Young and Ben Griffin, though.
That was the range where I had some money left over, and I was like, I don't care. Just like like any one of these 8 guys, I truly do not care. How about the 6K range? The final 10 golfers, so a third of the field, is $6,900 or cheaper. Starts with Harris English, Justin Rose, and Akshay Bhatia. Chris Goddard got in. Brian Harmon, he's in. Shane Lowry, yes, sir. And then we round this out with Nick Taylor, Sung Jae Im, Jacob Bridgman, Andrew Novak. Sia, you led me here. You said you might not play a lot of that 7K range, and you might just dip down here into the 6K range. A lot of the builds that we've been discussing, starting with 2 of the guys at the top, lead you here. So now that we are here, what do we click?
Shout out to a few of the guys that probably should have made it, but just fumbled the ball a little bit. Like Ricky Fowler not being here is really I'm not even a Ricky Fowler fan necessarily. That was really disappointing to me, the way he flubbed. I don't remember what hole that was, where he flew the green and then couldn't chip out of it. But
15, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty upsetting because I see guys like Sung JM and I'm like, what are we doing here? This guy like literally never gains on approach. But so I like Harris English like I normally do. I think Harris English is a solid play. I think Justin Rose is interesting as well. We've seen him pop recently, obviously. I wonder what people are going to do with Chris Gotterup because obviously he's been kind of bad lately, but again, if he finds it, he could be a guy that could have that sort of Cameron Young type performance at 6,500. The guy I'm definitely playing, just like last week and the week before, is Jacob Bridgman at 6,100.
That was the lock of the century that Jacob Bridgman was going to come out of your mouth. Yeah. And I love it. I mean, we sit here every single week and we say, well, if Jacob Bridgman could just finish T17, and sure enough, there he goes. T17 is one of the lowest priced guys. Doesn't really do anything crazy, just kind of works his way around the leaderboard. Yeah, Jacob Bridgman. There's only one guy cheaper. Jacob Bridgman's $6,100. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, he lost with the putter last week, Rick, and that's not something he normally does. He could have had a top 15 finish pretty easily, in my opinion.
Mike, here's that 6K range for you again. 10 golfers. Some obviously playing better than others, but what do we do? Because this is going to be a critical spot for us to make sure we can get Ludwig and Scottie or whoever else we want.
Yeah, it's a critical range. For me, my simple answer will be when I get some projected ownership data on Wednesday, I'll probably be sprinkling in the guys that I find to be either the lowest owned or that have a combination of being low owned and rate just a little higher than their peers. The one without seeing any ownership data that will probably rate well enough for me to put in lineups will be Akshay Bhatia. I think he's got the upside to go make some birdies at any given time, not asking him to go win the event. Like him a little bit, but I'll go all the way down and play Bridgman and Novak as well. It's flat 6K at Novak, the cheapest guy. Look, he's been good to me personally this year. He's, played fine golf at times. Certainly wouldn't make the argument that he's one of the 30 best golfers right now, but he's in the field. He's minimum price. And again, with these guys that I think I'm comfortable saying the winner of this event's not coming from the 6K range. Okay. And because of that, I think it's okay to play pretty much any of them. And the ones that give you lower overall ownership on your lineup are the ones that should be prioritized.
Okay. Let's play a game where I tell you the winner has come from this 6K range. The winner of the Tour Championship and thus the FedEx Cup is one of these 10 golfers. I'm telling you that right now. Which one, Mike, was it? Which one of these guys, if it was one of these, which one of them won?
Okay.
I think I've narrowed it down to 2.5 in my head.
It's 2.5 for me too, actually. I think it's the same 2.5. Mike, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say Harris English and Akshay Bhatia.
Okay. Not bad. Harris English is definitely one of them.
That's one of mine as well. Can I say Shane Lowry, I feel like has to be one.
Okay.
And then the half is Justin Rose.
Yeah, the half is definitely Justin Rose. Yeah, which is because when he plays well, he's awesome and he wins golf tournaments. He just does it, 5 or 6 times a year. I don't know if this is going to be one of them. I actually included Chris Gotterup.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
He has not been as good. I think it's a long year and it has kind of gotten away from him. But he's won. He's a multiple time winner on the PGA Tour. He's got a good skill set, has a little bit to play for. But I tend to agree with Mike that the winner is not coming from this range anytime soon.
Yeah.
What do we miss, boys? Anything? 30 players, Tour Championship changes to East Lake, no starting strokes. Anything else before we get out of here?
I just want to reemphasize that as much as we want to lean into recent form, do that with most of your lineup. But I mean, don't be afraid to play players that have let you down, because what you're going to see in a lot of these contests is people kind of leaning into a lot of the popular names, a lot of the good recent form names. So do some of that, but also do some of the scary ones too, because that's the only way you're going to differentiate yourself on a week like this.
The early wedge is just getting started. Best bets 7 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday with Eric Sobel, Sia, P-Mac, everything you need right here on the SportsLine YouTube channel. For now, producer Josh, thank you very much. He does all the hard work behind the scenes. It's Mike. It's Sia. I'm Rick. This has been the early wedge. We'll catch you next time.